A common thing that one often gets to hear from believers is that they have proof that their religious texts are actually factual and that they depict reality and that they should be taken seriously and literally because they are not actually mythology or fantasy, they're actually history. We hear this from Hindu quarters often, but we also hear this from Islamic quarters and Christian quarters. And one of the pieces of evidence that they often bring up, and I put evidence within quotes here, evidence, one of the pieces of evidence that they often bring forward is the claim that these books have mention of real people and places in them. If you go to a bookstore right now, you will find books that have stories, that have fictional narratives set in an actual city. You might have a spy thriller set in Mumbai, or you might have a detective story set in Delhi, or you might have a financial thriller set in Chennai or Bangalore. Imagine a volcano of some sort erupted or some natural calamity happened and all signs of our civilization was wiped out except this one book. Imagine this book was discovered in 1000 years by someone who's an archaeologist or a paleontologist in the future, I guess, and they found this book and the book is badly damaged, and they read in this book this story about this spy thriller or this detective story or this financial thriller or this romantic story or whatever else the story in the book might be. Imagine that they read this story and someone said, I wonder if this really happened. And then they found out that the story is set in Delhi or Mumbai. And because these people are archaeologists, they know that Delhi and Mumbai was, these were actual places in the real world. They have remains from those places. What will you think of their intelligence if they thought that, well, the book contains a story and the book is set in a city that we know of. Therefore, because the city exists, because the city once upon a time existed, we should come to the conclusion that everything written in this book, everything that this story says, must also be true. I'm betting you will not think that they were very smart because they did not verify their inference from multiple sources. They did not go to the remains of these cities, and they did not seek verification from multiple sources. They did not say, okay, so this book contains this story. Let us go and now look in that dead city to see if there is any sign of this being true. If they did not do that, you will not think of them as very smart. If a Spider-Man comic book right now got buried in the ground and everything else got destroyed, and in 2000, 3000 years somebody found the Spider-Man comic book and they read the comic book and then they wondered whether this was true, and they found that Spider-Man is swinging through the streets of Manhattan, and then they find the remains of an actual city called Manhattan. Would they be justified in assuming that Spider-Man actually existed? No, of course not. Mythology of all religions, be it Islamic, Hindu, Christian, Judaism, whatever, mythology is built on top of three things. Number one, that which did happen. Number two, that which did not happen. And number three, that which cannot happen. That which did happen includes real people and real places. These are found in all religious books, but they by themselves are not proof that these things are, that the texts in which these things are mentioned are correct. Then we come to that which did not happen. These are many things that are embellishments. These are stories about people's births and deaths and wars that happened sometimes. These things actually did not happen, but they were mentioned. We all know about kings and how literature is written about them, and a lot of thing is embellished. If a king hires a court poet to write a poet about himself, do you think he wants him to be accurate? Do you think he wants him to be historically factual? No, they want something to praise them, something using which future generations may remember them. And often these things, these stories, these poems, these epics, these statues and paintings show these people as more attractive and more brave and more competent than they actually were. You will be horrified if you saw pictures of some of the kings from ancient times. They look nothing like their statues. And thirdly, we come to that which cannot happen. These are the miracle claims. These are the magical stories about flying horses, flying donkeys, flying apes, flying ships, nuclear weapons in ancient times, and all sorts of stuff that we actually do not have any evidence for. And it also seems very unlikely that these things are true because they're physically impossible. Having said all these things, I want to come to a final point about all this. What if I had a book and this book made 10 claims about reality? And out of these 10 claims, 9 were true. Would this automatically mean that the 10th claim is also true? No, it won't, because every claim has to be evaluated on its own merit. Suppose 9 claims are true, then 9 claims are true. The 10th claim needs to be proven to be true on its own merits. If something can be verified, wonderful, accept it as true. But what cannot be verified must be automatically put in the category or the folder called "we do not know." That is the skeptical way of dealing with things. And that is, I think, what any sensible person should do to claims that come from ancient texts about, factual accuracy. We have the unfortunate tendency of treating mythological texts as history in this country. And I think this is not, it's not limited to Hinduism. Muslims also do it, Christians also do it. But the methodology using which they make this claim is always the same. We have a book, it makes some claims, and look, this claim contains a word that is actually true. Okay, so what? Is it impossible for me to write a book right now about a real person and make the story entirely fabricated? Because that can be done, and it does happen a lot. Literature is not always based on complete fantasy. It is often based on things that do happen. And in a way, I would even go so far as to say that it is impossible to write something that is not at all inspired by anything at all. Game of Thrones is fantasy, but the story of the Game of Thrones novels were based on actual historical stories that George R.R. Martin read somewhere. Lord of the Rings is fantasy, but it is based more or less on J.R.R. Tolkien's experiences as a soldier during the World War. And the list goes on and on and on, and it doesn't end. Completely fabricated fantasy is almost impossible to write, and all fantastic narratives have some seed of reality in them. However, that seed of reality is only an inspirational point. It's where the story begins. And that point of inspiration from reality cannot be taken as proof that everything else in the story is also literally, completely, absolutely true. This is a channel where I talk about thinking and how we think and how we can think better. If you like it, please click the subscribe button, the like button, and the bell icon so you get notified whenever I put out my next video. My name is Vimoh, and I will see you in the next episode. Thank you for watching.